This is not real. This is not real. This is not real. This isn't happening. Kate, tell me this isn't really happening.
I hear there's something you don't like the looks of.
We discovered a very large comet.
Oh, good for you.
It's headed directly towards Earth.
This comet is what we call a planet killer.
At this exact moment, I say we sit tight and assess.
Sit tight and assess?
Sit tight.
And then assess. The sit tight part comes first, then you gotta digest it. That's the assessment period.
This is the worst news in the history of humanity. He just blew us off.
What are we gonna do? We have to release the information.
So we just leak it.
Our guests today have made a pretty big discovery in space.
How big is this thing, though? Like, can it destroy my ex-wife's house? Is that possible?
There's a 100% chance that we're all going to die.
Kate? Kate?
Hey.
Well, the handsome astronomer can come back anytime, but the yelling lady, not so.
Not so much.
We're gonna get the news out there, one way or another.
It's real and it's coming. FBI!
Jesus Christ, you could have just called me.
This comet contains $30 trillion worth of material.
What do trillions of dollars matter if we're all gonna die?
Oh, no, what if we're rich?
That would be terrible!
You guys discovered a comet? I have a tattoo of a shooting star on my back.
Oh, that's terrific. This could be a complete disaster.
This is already a disaster.
You know that girl from Live TV said we're all gonna die?
No.
Yo, bro! You'll never take me alive!
There it is! Giant comet hurtling its way towards Earth! Can you see it?
I can't. My head is in a bag.
I did have the FBI put that bag over your head. They don't do that. The CIA does, but I made them do it.
You know, I had a feeling.
It's a good feeling, because that is what I did, and it was very funny and cool.
Hello and welcome to this BFI Home Q&A. I am Clarisse Loughrey and I'm the Chief Film Critic at The Independent, and it's my pleasure to be joined tonight by director Adam McKay to talk about his film Don't Look Up. Just sort of a apocalyptic satire, which I will say made me laugh and then cry within about a 30-second span, which I feel like is pretty impressive. Congratulations on the film, first off.
Thanks, Clarisse. Thanks for having me, BFI.
And I'd actually like to start by mentioning your two previous films, The Big Short and Vice, which I guess are essentially satirically inclined retellings of recent history. And now Don't Look Up is completely fictional, but why did you decide to tell the story of climate change through this story of a comet versus choosing a real world event and then dramatizing that?
Yeah, like when I first got truly freaked out about the climate crisis was about 3 years ago. And you could almost look at the last three films I've done and you could call them the freak out films, because the first one was the economic collapse, which my dad lost his house in. And then the second one was the Iraq War, which, as we know, killed by some estimates 1 million people. And then in the middle of filming that, I started reading the United Nations IPCC report, and I read David Wallace Wells's Uninhabitable Earth, which, if you haven't checked it out, is worth reading. And I went on a little bit of a walkabout off of that, where I started asking scientists, surely I'm missing something. I know that, the climate crisis is a problem, but it's not a problem this soon, is it? And everything I heard was like, oh no, it's happening much faster than we thought. And I started losing sleep. So so I started to try and find a way, because our kind of traditional narratives haven't really broken through. And what's the way to connect with people? And, my background is comedy, and I've just noticed when there's groups of people laughing, it is a good thing. And especially after the last 5, 10, 20 years that we've lived through. So that's what inspired the movie.
Your entire career is fascinating because, you know, you established yourself very quickly as a director with Anchorman, with Step Brothers, with these films that are so much a part of the comedy lexicon. And I feel like, you know, those films are all about the general absurdity of society. And now you're moving into something sharper and more specific. But what were you able to take from those previous films and bring into something like Don't Look Up?
You know, Will Ferrell and I always did a little game whenever we would start our movies. And I would always joke with him that there's a hidden truth at the center of it. And Ferrell's great. He's very politically aware. He's very sharp. And so even when we did Anchorman, the hidden truth was always that, you know, American media, and to some degree the world media, has been usurped by entertainment and ratings. And then with Step Brothers, it was that, you know, capitalism has turned us into giant babies, that the customer's always right. And then we would kind of trot off and kind of do what we were doing. So, you know, those movies did a bunch of things for me. It was a very different time, the early 2000s, than it is now, where the jeopardy is much more overt. I think there's very few people denying that we're in a very difficult situation right now. But at that time, there was still a kind of feeling that we could solve these issues. So we were laughing in a very overt way, but at the same time, you know, with Talladega Nights even, wondering what's going on with this weird reaction to our government and this weird pride. And, well, you know, let's do what we do. Let's go in and let's laugh and let's be absurd.
What I find particularly fascinating about Don't Look Up is there's this constant push and pull in the tone between, I guess, what feels like a call to action, maybe a little bit of a guilt trip, but also there is a sense of mutual despair though. And then I felt so reassured watching this because you know, like I'm sure everyone does, I have these moments where I go, my God, is the world really going crazy? How did you keep that balance right between the guilt and the reassurance?
It's a great question. And, you know, honestly, it's so funny because we're editing the movie. We obviously shot the movie, and then I was editing it, and I love to test screen. I mean, the movies I'm trying to make engage the audience in a very direct way. And I want to see how those movies, engage the audience. So we test screened the movie plenty of times. We re-edited it. And then when it was put out, it was the first time that I heard the kind of guilt trip part of it, because our test audiences never had that reaction. And then when I thought about it, it made a lot of sense that regular people see the kind of catastrophe that we're living with. They see the double talk. And then when we went to the level of, higher sort of participants in the media, suddenly we got that response. And by the way, not to discount those responses. I mean, honestly, I feel like have an honest response to the movie, but it truly caught me off guard. I didn't see it coming, because we'd been screening it, and everyone was like, yep, that's what's going on. And then suddenly we had this angry response that was really strange. So, people think by me saying that, I'm saying like your response is lesser than or whatever. But I just think we live in a really complicated world, and whether your response is that's true, or I don't like that, or that's dumb, or I'm angry, that's all valuable. I mean, so yeah, the movie had a little more charge to it than I originally anticipated.
I mean, it made me feel a little bit guilty, but I grew up Irish Catholic, so I always feel guilty. So I might not be the best.
I'm Irish Catholic. Catholic.
You can't really escape it.
Yeah.
I remember when I first read about this film, reading the cast list, it's Jennifer Lawrence, Leonardo DiCaprio, Rob Morgan, Meryl Streep, Jonah Hill, Kate Blanchett, Mark Rylance, Timothée Chalamet. I mean, what I particularly loved is that this cast is so intergenerational as well. There's sort of a star from every decade. And I wondered, what for you did you think was the unifying thing that brought everybody together and why they wanted to do this project?
It was really cool because, our goal with this movie, the reason we went with Netflix was because I feel like every movie has a way it should be released. One of my favorite movies in the last 5 or 10 years is the Florida Project, which I love. And I thought that was perfect. I thought A24 releasing that was like, yes. When we did The Big Short, I thought Paramount was perfect. Like, they were passionate about it. It was a perfect release. With this movie, the intention was always a world movie. So we were always looking at a sort of larger release. And I got to give a lot of credit to my producer, Kevin Messick, and my casting director, Francine Maisler, who early on, normally when you're making a project, you would say, all right, we have too many known actors, let's pull back. I mean, that's what we did with Succession, that's what we did with Vice, that's what we did with The Big Short. But I got to give a lot of credit to Francine and Kevin. They were both like, no, in this case, the casting is kind of part of the point of view of the movie, and it's part of the energy of the movie. So yeah, like we were at a certain point and we're like, all right, Ariana Grande's in, Timothée Chalamet's in, like, let's let it all flow. And hopefully the casting is part of what we're commenting on. And then also it reaches out to a wider audience.
Jack and Bree are gonna do like 10 on the SCOTUS nominee, and then Riley Bina, you'll come on.
And I get to talk about my single, right? A portion of the profits goes to the manatee sanctuaries.
Yes, but the breakup first. And then Dr. Mindy and Miss Dibiowski, you'll come on and talk about that planet you discovered.
Comet, we found a comet.
They know what we're here to talk about, right?
Of course, Jack and Bree love doing science segments. Just remember, keep it light, fun. Jack and Bree love having a good time.
Well, that's not promising.
You guys discovered a comet? That's so dope. I have a tattoo of a shooting star on my back.
That's terrific.
But then the nice contradiction is that no one really looks like themselves in this movie. There are the wigs, the costumes by Susan Matheson, Kate Blanchett's teeth are terrifying in this. Was that a conscious decision to go, I don't want these A-listers to look like A-listers?
Well, I always go back as the director to the script and, reading the script. Leonardo DiCaprio is a professor who has panic attacks. Kate Dibiowski, played by Jen Lawrence, is a PhD student who is frustrated and sort of vilified, and on and on and on. And in the case of Chalamet's character, Yule, who's one of my favorite characters. I mean, I kept telling Timothy I could do a whole movie about Yule, the shoplifting evangelical. So what's great about these actors is we weren't really casting stars. We were casting really good actors who every one of them just went into the character. And it was a perfect blend of great performances, really detailed character work. And at the same time, they have this shine that kind of radiates beyond what the what the script is. So it was the most spoiled I've ever felt as a director. Kate Blanchett just walks in and she's hilarious and grounded and is like, my teeth should be perfect. And then, Mark Rylance, who I think is one of the most brilliant performances in the movie, just came in and right away we were engaging. All right, we already have these tech billionaires that are so ridiculous. How do we get to the essence of them? And then in one moment, I was like, what if you never made eye contact? And Rylance was like, yes, that's it. It's the fine line between pain and trauma and disdain. And that's what these guys ride. So yeah, it was crazy. And we were making it during the pandemic, before the vaccine, so everyone was a little traumatized. But everyone wanted to laugh, wanted to collaborate, and it was an experience like no other.
And from my understanding, Leonardo DiCaprio was the last or one of the last actors to officially sign on, because partially he was interested in working on his character in the script with you. And I wondered, what was he interested in and what did he want to change? And what was it like working with him in that capacity?
I mean, I think one of the coolest things as a director and as a writer and as a giant lover of films is that you get these actors who come in, whether it's Christian Bale in Vice, whether it's Amy Adams, whether it's Ryan Gosling in The Big Short, and you realize pretty quickly why they're so good at what they do, and they're rigorous as hell. They challenge every moment. They try and blend the script with how they feel with the character they're creating. And DiCaprio was no exception. In fact, I mean, Bale's really rigorous, so is Adams. But I would put DiCaprio right up there with it. I mean, he's worked with a lot of great filmmakers. He just started asking me questions after question after question. And it just made the movie better. And it was always done in good faith. I mean, we know the bad faith questions, which are when, like I've experienced it before, when you can tell an actor wants out. And everything that DiCaprio did was just driving towards what the central message was, who the character was, the nuance, this kind of strange tone shift that we had in this movie between ludicrous comedy and dark tragedy. So I loved it. I loved every second. We met about 4 or 5 times in my backyard, and we had like 2, 3, 4-hour meetings, and it was film lovers heaven.
I want to talk about that fantastic scene in the Oval Office, which took 2 days to shoot, and you had a 16-minute cut at one point, and there's a heavy improv. And something that I really wanted to ask about that is, you know, improv, such an integral part of improv is encouraging playfulness and imagination, but how did you have that but still maintain that core of veracity that this film has?
Well, you put your finger right on it. That scene was the most difficult scene because the structure of the movie is that they're coming down from the mountain. And the top of the mountain is empirical science. It's beautiful music. It's humility in the face of, of truth. And then, of course, it's Wu-Tang Clan. So it's all the highest moments of human achievement, which, once again, Wu-Tang Clan is part of. And then they come down into the valley, and it's this crazy world. And we see some of it before the Oval Office scene, but the Oval Office scene is really where it hits. It's the first voice of authority. And it was one of the hardest, it's the hardest scene. My editor, Hank Corwin, who's brilliant, he and I just wrestled with it. And we realized about 3 months into it that what was tricky about it was that you were really ordinarily, when you're making a movie, there's an exchange between the audience and the filmmaker. But in this case, there was an exchange between 3 voices. And the one voice was how crazy the real world really is, how crazy we, the filmmakers, think it is, and how crazy the audience thinks it is. And we realized there was a big divide between those 3 because the original cut that Hank Corwin did was sublime. I mean, it was beautiful. And for those of you who don't know who Hank Corwin is, look up his filmography. He's one of the great editors of all time. He cut on JFK. He's worked on all the Terrence Malick movies, Tree of Life. He did Natural Born Killers. There's no one sort of more in touch with the cognitive dissonance of being alive in 2022 than Hank Corwin. So we had to back way up, and we had to realize that, like, oh, we were giving up too much authority, even though our view of the world was that it's crazy. And it was really cool. It became this conversation between us, the audience, and reality. And so even though it was really difficult, I really just loved it. And it was one of the reasons that filmmaking is so incredible, because it is such a public endeavor. And the conversations that happen a lot of times, day in, day out, with the news media, with the social media, just don't happen in that kind of honest, challenging way.
I feel like it's very important at this point to point out to anyone watching that this was written before the pandemic. But when you came to shoot it, it was the pandemic. What was it like going back to that script, reading it again and going, oh, okay, wow.
It was crazy. I mean, it was, we were scouting in Boston, you know, we had about 3 or 4 people cast, Netflix had bought it, and we were like, all right, let's make the movie. And I kept hearing about this virus in the distance. And then I turned on, I'm a big basketball fan. And then I turned on a game and they shut the game down and they said COVID. And that was the first time I got the chill. And I called my wife and I was like, get hand sanitizer, get masks. And then I went home, they flew us out almost immediately, Netflix. And for the next 5 months, I just saw beat after beat of the movie come true. So it was strange, disconcerting, scary. And then I went back to the cast and I said, look, I mean, we were going to do this movie before the pandemic. A lot of it's come true, but I feel like there's a value to us gathering around this movie and having a shared laugh, a shared emotion. What do you guys think? And every one of them was like, yes, we have to make it more than ever. We've lost that edge of this is what could be. It's now what is. So we're going to take some flack for that, but we still felt like as a world experience, it's bizarre and fortuitous that we're in this spot. So everyone I talked to, Meryl Streep, Leo, Jen, you know, Jonah, Tyler Perry, Rob Morgan, they were all like, let's go.
I'd like to buy these sunglasses.
You know that girl from live TV said we're all gonna die?
No. What's your purchase?
What the fuck? No, that's you. That's definitely you.
Yep, that's me.
Holy shit, you're a stone cold legend. Word is bond.
Got a picture of you on my board.
Picture you on his fucking board.
That's great. What's your purchase? If you don't have one, I need you to get out of line and make room for the other customers.
Can I touch your hair in a non-sexual way?
Get the fuck away from me.
Dude, call Diogo. He's gonna freak out. We say hi to my friend real quick. Dude, he's obsessed with you. We love you. We can't stand Orlean either.
Yo, 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 yo.
Diogo! What's up, dude? Shut the fuck up. Check out real quick.
Yo, bro!
But yeah, man, I'd never seen anything like it. It was crazy. People kept calling me, you know, they were like, you're a prophet. I was like, no. Like, you have a freaky ability. And I was like, no, I think it's pretty obvious what the pitfalls that are coming our way. And it's surprising that it didn't happen sooner.
I've seen this impulse to describe Meryl Streep's character, President Orlean, as a Donald Trump stand-in, which I feel like that lets a lot of other presidents off the hook. I wondered what your thoughts on it were.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you know, there's a thing going on in the US, which I'm sure people from outside the US see, which is that we're in this weird red-blue game where one side blames the other, but the real truth is both sides are owned by big money. And it's really, you look at con games throughout history and it really matches that thing. So no, Janie Arlene is not just Trump. She's also Bill Clinton. She's also W. Bush. There's a little pinch of Obama in there. I mean, the truth is the last 40 years for the US has been a bit of a disaster, no matter who's been in that White House. And now we're in the Biden White House and they're doing nothing. They're locked up with dirty money. So it's no accident that we put that picture of Meryl Streep's character hugging Bill Clinton, because we did not get here through Donald Trump. Donald Trump is more of a symptom at the end of the road. But at the same time, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. I mean, he's a horror show. So the parts of Donald Trump that people see in Janie Arlene are accurate. I mean, there's no question. Unbridled narcissism, personal interest, corruption, that's accurate. So anyone who's interpreting it one way or the other, I just say yes.
And what's so important to me about this film is that it really looks at how all major institutions, government, media, the corporations as well, you know, they all have a share in the blame. And it makes me think of that speech that Leonardo DiCaprio gives, where, you know, his sort of big network moment. And he's really talking about the fact that we cannot have an honest conversation about things anymore. For you, is that the key to all of this?
Yeah, that speech is the whole movie. I mean, what he says, you know, not everything has to be clever or likable. Sometimes we need to be able to just say things to each other. But we all know that the very way that we communicate with each other, whether it's through Facebook or Twitter or the media, has been prophetized. And it's really scary. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. We laughed a lot making this movie. I think it's important to laugh. Don't get too down, but we're in a really dangerous situation right now where all the science is very clear that we're 5 to 10 years away. A lot of people think it's 80 to 100, but we're 5 to 10 years now away from climactic collapse. And yet you watch our leaders in the UK, in the US, China, Russia, and you can tell they're 30 years behind the information that we're all feeling, because if they weren't, they would be freaking out. So there definitely is a dark, tremendous fear underneath this movie that's a comedy. And I can only look at the stuff that came out in the 60s and 70s that was screaming to warn us, like, be careful. And it's Network, Dr. Strangelove, Ace in the Hole, all these great movies that we don't really make movies like that anymore. And underneath it all was a genuine terror. And there's no question that's what's underneath this movie.
And to finish off, I mean, now, you know, this film is starting to become a part of the awards conversation. You know, I think there's a good chance that people will be going on stage from your team and accepting awards and having speeches. How do you think that that's going to become a platform to further the message of Don't Look Up?
It's so tricky, because the second you're in an award spot and you say something, I've done it before. I did it when we won the Oscar for The Big Short. I just said, you know, if you don't want candidates that are controlled by big banks and weirdo billionaires, don't vote for them. And it instantly gets filtered through Hollywood award speech. So I don't know if any of those moments are going to mean a whole lot. I mean, you know, if we do win something, maybe you just give the data. I don't know. But the good thing, I mean, here's the upside, is that the world reacted to this movie. And whether you liked it or not, and it's a comedy, so that's always part of the equation, to see a movie play around the globe that is about an existential fear, and by Netflix's numbers, to be #1, I think it was in like 90 countries or 87 countries, like Nigeria, Pakistan, Vietnam, Cambodia, not to mention US, Brazil. That's a big deal. And forget me and forget the movie. That's actually hopeful, and it shows that human beings are realizing the moment we're in, because if you turn on your TV or you hear your leaders speak, sometimes it doesn't seem like they're aware of it at all. You can feel really aggressively gaslit. And so the response to this really filled me with a lot of optimism. I really looked at the moment-to-moment responses on social media and was like, wow, okay, I'm not the only person that's living in this crazy sort of bubble. So I do think that's a positive thing. Once again, whether you thought the movie was funny or clever or it was too on the nose, whatever. The fact that, I think by their estimates, it's something like 250 million people, maybe approaching 300 million people connected with this movie, definitely did my heart good.
Yeah, and thank you for making the film. Thank you for being with us today. I mean, that's why I fell in love with cinema, is that it's a way to start a conversation. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. And one thing about me that everyone knows, I love film. I love cinema. And I'm honored to be in this spot where a whole team of us have made a movie that's creating so much discussion. So thank you so much for hosting this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Don't Look Up is available to watch now on Netflix. And please don't forget to subscribe to the BFI YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me, and good night.